Hello, and thank you for coming to this event. Thank you for asking me to speak. I'm sorry I cannot be here in person. Unfortunately, I have a family situation that had to be attended to. Plus, I want to just say thank you for promoting and having this event honoring women. It was first decided back in 1911 that we would have an International Women's Day. It was in 1980 that President Jimmy Carter, if you can even remember back that far like I can, he established National Women's History Week. And then in 1987 it became a full month. But like all groups singled out for a day or a month in America, women are also a part of history for the other 11 months of the year, not just this month. But I'd also like to add that women were influencing the course of history long before 1980, and I'll mention a couple of them in a few minutes. But I'm glad to be here and that each year at a time when we pause to understand the role of women in society today, because history is more than simply what happened and more than what men and women are doing to make it happen. History is what we remember about those deeds. It is the lessons we have taken from the past and the knowledge we draw to live today and shape our future. Gender is one of the biggest factors when it comes to wages and earning that needs to change. Progress comes through intentional, persistent, and dedicated effort, and I thank everyone who is working towards equality for women. Women can no longer be faceless, forgotten figures of history. In Easton, we've had many women, but I'd like to single out just a few. But we've had many who have been a real strong part of our community way back to the colonial area, like Mamie Morgan. She was self-educated by her physician husband and had an excellent library of law books. And she studied those law books. It was her favorite pastime activity. And she actually knew more than most of the lawyers of the day. So a lot of her friends and neighbors would come to her seeking her legal advice, and she would actually even represent them in court, and she would win. And that's all the way back when her tomb is one of only two tombs that are up at the Easton Public Library, because it was originally the German Reformed Cemetery, and all the bodies were exhumed and moved to the Easton Cemetery to make way for a new Easton Public Library at the corner of 5th and Church Streets. The only two that were left were Mamie Morgan and our Surveyor General, William Parsons, who laid out our city. We also had Jeanette Reben, a well-known and very long political figure in the Lehigh Valley in Harrisburg. She was a state representative and senator, and she really cared about education. We also had Florence Cyber. Dr. Cyber was a wonderful scientist who, although handicapped by polio, went on to really develop a safe process for intravenous therapy, and then later refined a tuberculin skin test, which is still used today worldwide. She lived right on 2nd Street in downtown Easton. Helen Beebe, I remember Mrs. Beebe. She was a very wonderful person. She was a speech pathologist, founder of the Helen Beebe Center, which is still in existence today, but not in Easton. It was for the hearing impaired. I had a student when I was a teacher who had a very difficult time speaking and hearing. He couldn't speak because of his hearing loss, and today he's probably making about 7 figures out in California because of his training in speech pathology that Helen Beebe gave him right here in Easton. Interesting about Helen, in 1938 she made all the news nationally because as a female she wore trousers into a court and the judge jailed her. Imagine that today, women not wearing dresses back in 1938. It was her way of protesting, to say that women and men are alike in many, many ways. But the other one was, of course, we had Dee Rossioli, a Broadway star. We've had Jennifer Samoji, a very talented ballet dancer. She was also the Princess Grace Award recipient in 1991. Carol Harmon was the first woman elected to City Council back in the late 70s. So that's pretty accurate, pretty good for Easton politics. Sandra Volcano is still on our board. She's been on City Council now for about 22 years. Doing a great job, I might add. Frances Ketchen was our first black female elected to the school board of the Easton Area School District. And of course, our own current day Susan Wild, representing us, this district in Congress. These women displayed gumption, ambition, and compassion for others. And they opened the door for today's women and paved the way for the first female vice president. Our history is also replete with examples of the unfair bravery and grit of women in America, particularly in times of crisis and emergency. Women served our nation during World War II, led organizing efforts during the civil rights movement and the labor movement, especially the millions of black women and immigrant women who continue today to fight for justice. Today, hundreds of women serve on our city in many different roles, whether it be on our authorities, boards, commissions, elected officials, elected officers to local government, directors and leaders of our nonprofit organizations, and throughout our history, women and girls have made vital contributions, often in the face of discrimination and undue hardships. Courageous women marched for and won the right to vote, campaigned against injustice, shattered countless barriers, and expanded possibilities for American life. But the battle's not over. Today, women still have to fight for equity, inclusion, and equal pay for equal work. During Women's History Month, let us honor the accomplished and visionary women who have helped to build this great nation, including those whose contributions have not been adequately recognized and celebrated. Let us pay tribute to the trailblazers for the recent and distant past, for daring to envision the future for which no past precedent existed, and for building a nation of endless possibilities for all its women and girls. Women today continue to carry the torch to secure workplace justice and equality, and to contest and challenge the norms of American workforce. These female entrepreneurs, labor leaders, and innovators have challenged stereotypes and social assumptions about women who believe what they can and achieve what they can. These strong women, past and present, serve as remarkable role models for all of our young women and young girls in school. In closing, I'd like to remind all of our women of what Eleanor Roosevelt said when she was our First Lady. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Thank you, and have a great day.